Well, bad memories are a part of life.
They worked, Mom and Daddy both worked night shift at what we call the thread mill, Coates and Clark. So my Aunt Early, my father's only sister, kept us during the school week. And I got a mama fix. About halfway through the school year, what they'd do, they'd come and pick us up on Saturday morning and take us back on Sunday evening. And I early and then went to church. Back then it was Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Wednesday, like most Baptist churches. And I started on Mama about 3 o'clock, wanting her to stay with me or take me with her. Now I'm 6 years old. Mama was like a child too. She married him at 14, so she listened to what he said. And he says, no, you can't go. You know you can't go. And I cried, and I cried. I don't know why, but I wouldn't shut up. It was like I just had to have Mama. Well, he literally beat the hell out of me because I wouldn't shut up. And I can remember laying in church and Aunt Early's lap, I went to sleep. You know what snubbing is in your sleep? I'd wake myself up doing that.
You got tears in your eyes.
Memories. My oldest memory of him was not really that bad. Every Saturday, the men in the neighborhood, the community, would congregate at Granddaddy Adams's and get haircuts. He'd cut hair. He learned to cut hair. Maybe not every Saturday, but at least once a month on Saturday. And we had gone down there. And I guess it was like spring of the year. I can't remember. Mama says there's no way you could remember it because you were only 3 years old. I says, I can remember it. Somebody come running up, and Durward and I have discussed this in the past year. He said he was a teenager. He's about 8 years older than I am. So he was about 10 or 11. And he can remember somebody coming to Granddaddy Adams's yard. They were out in the yard cutting hair. It was nice enough weather. And saying lightning had struck the church. And it was on fire. So, of course, the men all began to run. Well, there's no such thing as a volunteer fire department back then or whatever. And the old man had like a T-model Ford, or it was one of those big high ones. I think it was what they call a T-model. This would have been like 1939. And he drove up at the time. You know how the church kind of sits on the rise there. But at the time it was even higher, and the road was cut down below it. It was more pronounced than it is now. And he parked down below the church, and he threatened me with an inch of my life if I got out of the car. He says, you do not move. You stay right in this car. And I can remember seeing the bucket brigade trying to put out the fire, and they didn't. They lost it.
Oh, wow.
In fact, you don't belong to Currahee Memories or Stevens County History.
Mm-mm.
It's interesting. You might want to join on Facebook. You wouldn't know a lot of the people or whatever. I don't know a whole lot of them anymore, but there's a lot of history, and they told about the church burning in it, and I commented that I remembered that, And Mama always swore I couldn't. But Mama got confused too. You've heard of the cyclone that hit Gainesville, Georgia back in the 30s?
No, I actually hadn't heard about that.
It was one of the worst tornadoes to ever hit Georgia. It completely obliterated Gainesville, Georgia. I mean, it just wiped it out. And I don't know if it was hundreds of people killed, but several people were killed. And Mama says she can remember. She was pregnant, she said, with Latrell. And she can remember that even in East Denali, it got black as night. That's how dark it was. And I was up there one time before she died visiting her, and she gets this magazine that something about Georgia. I think WT's the one that signed her up for it or whatever. And they had that in there about that, and it was 1936. She was pregnant with me. She was not pregnant with Latrell when it happened. When Kermit's father died, he was raised by a stepmother. Kermit's grandmother was his step-grandmother, but that's only mother and grandmother. I think Mr. Shore was 3 years old when his mother died. She died in the Spanish flu epidemic.
Mm.
And I think the reason she did, she'd had 3 babies, bam, 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 and her body was probably... So I think Mr. Shore was only about 3 when she died. And Grandpa remarried to Pauline Dawkins. And she actually raised them and had 5 more kids with him. But when Mr. Short and Grandma lived on she lived on Social Security in Atlanta area. That is good.
That was me.
Yeah, you did good.
Me by myself.
Uh-huh.
Can you help me with something? Sure.